Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mark Bradley here. Going to talk today about how to have your most profitable snow year. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about estimating, setting up the estimating library, and kind of a discussion around how to focus on route density and drive profitability through using larger equipment to manage those larger routes. So off the start, I think in order to really price snow contracts accurately, you need to have your estimating library set up properly. And I think that's a question we get quite a bit at LMN when people start estimating is, how to sort of customize the library or bid snow and what budget to use and, kind of how to set up work area templates. So I'll kind of go through that here off the start just to clarify for anybody who may be at that stage. So to start with, I think it's important to go into the item catalog and build out a snow category. So for each of your main components, I think it's wise to create separate rates for snow plowing specifically. So you can see here in this library that I'm using for a sample today, we've got snow equipment operator, snow walks labor, snow plow driver. I'm just going to create a new one here just to kind of show everybody how to best do that. But obviously the name, I try to start everything with snow, and then we'll say salter truck operator, and it's going to be hours. Now, if the wage in the company varies, you may want to use an average wage, or maybe you're using a standard wage program. But I'm going to say it's $30. We don't pay overtime for snow, or maybe you do. We're not going to have an unbilled factor here, and so that's going to kind of automatically use the price from the main budget, or if you'd like, you could always override it and set a higher profit margin here. There's a couple ways you can do that, obviously. The next big point that I want to kind of explain is when it comes to setting your pricing, it's important that you talk about your budgets. In this case, the markup is coming in from a company budget, but if I'm going to use snow specifically, I might want to use a different budget that's set specifically for snow. And lots of companies don't necessarily have a snow budget set up. If you're wanting to do that, we do have a few webinars that have been recorded in the past specifically for that. But for today, we're just going to kind of focus more on the estimating library. So next up, I'm going to look at my equipment library. And same thing, I like to kind of prefix those also with snow. So in this library, we've got snow blower, Kubota tractor with plow, loader, specifically for snow. But I'm going to kind of run a couple scenarios here specifically on equipment today. So I want to kind of look at the cost of a rental loader versus leasing. And this is something that, again, I get asked this question a lot when we're doing workshops, and it's usually good just to do a sample like this. So I'm going to use a loader. So again, I'm going to kind of prefix it with snow so it's easier to find later. I'm going to say a loader, and I'm going to say a 914 cat. And what I'm going to probably say here, I'll do this one as the rental first, actually. So I'm going to change that to equipment, and I want to price in hours because it's most common to share the equipment as opposed to putting it somewhere for an entire day. So, and then I'm over here on the cost per hour, I'm going to look at the forecasted billable hours. So I'm going to just use 300, and that varies market to market based on the number of snowfalls per year. And I'm going to just change the hours to 10. And if I were leasing it, I could simply take the total amount. But here, what I could say is the cost for the year, if you'd like to set it up that way. So if I'm going to say the cost to rent the machine for the year is $15,000, this is going to, and I don't have any maintenance and insurance costs. Everything's all built in. My fuel is $4. And I'm going to say that I'm going to burn 40 gallons per shift. So I've got my hourly and daily cost on that rental very quickly here. And this is where sometimes I think a lot of people get kind of hung up on whether to rent or lease or buy. So I'm going to save this one. Then next up, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to lease it. So I'm going to say snow loader 914 cat. And now I'm going to say that I don't really need this machine in the summer. It's not part of my summer fleet. So I'm going to kind of leave the hours set at 300. And the machine is going to be a $130,000, I'll say, with a finance rate of 2.9%. And I'm going to lease the vehicle for 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, I think it's still going to be worth $50,000. But I'm going to have some maintenance and I'm going to have some insurance. And I'm going to go with the same fuel price. And you kind of see the hourly cost is actually a little higher on this leased machine. So now the main reason for that is because I'm saying here that I'm not going to use the machine other than doing this snow plowing. Now, for example, if I had a project type business and I did need the machine in the summer and I thought I would put the machine out for say 50 days in the summer, then my hourly rate for that machine could be significantly reduced. So the key decision that I've always used in deciding whether to finance or rent equipment is whether or not I have any off-season use or if I'm interested in renting that equipment out in my off-season. So in this case, if I were just to simply look at apples to apples, the cost of a lease, the cost of a lease versus the rental, if I have no other use in the rest of the year, it would be kind of a clear decision that it's cheaper to go the other way. So kind of a handy way to kind of make that decision. I'll say both here. The next thing that I kind of wanted to cover was pricing. So now that we've kind of had a look at the catalog and we've added some snow labor and equipment, just want to kind of consider what it would look like to build or use templates for plowing snow. So templates are pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and open my templates library and just kind of we'll look at one here and maybe build one quickly as well. So I've got commercial snow template with a pickup. So I'm going to open that one. And this is pretty simple. There's just simply the name on the first page. Then we click items. And this just shows the items within the template. So here we've got a snow equipment operator, a snow walk laborer, a snow walk snow blower for the laborer, and a crew truck and plow. And again, because this is a pickup truck template, that's why we've got the plow in here. If it was a loader template, we'd have a loader in here. In addition to that, you can create production rates. So if you'd like to use your own or use any industry standards, you can do that here. So if you know that a crew truck plows a half an acre per hour, you could just simply say 0.5 acres per 1 hour and save that. And that would then be in the template for the next time that you bid the job to make things a little bit easier. So very easy to set up templates, and then they're there to use in the future. So I'm going to do a sample estimate here in a minute, and I'm going to use some templates. I just wanted to kind of go in and show you these. So I'm going to save my changes to that template. If I go back to templates, once I've made one, like let's say the salt truck, I've got a 14-ton salt truck in here at the moment, but let's say I go out and I buy a new salt truck this year, and this one's going to be a 20-ton salt truck. So I could say snow, so this one's a monster salter, and I want to build this into my template for the first time. So I've copied my template. This saves me building one from scratch. Now I'm just going to go in, and within the items, I had a 14-ton salt truck, obviously, because I copied that one. I'm going to delete that one. And now I just need to add my new salt truck. And if I haven't already got it in my library, which I don't in this case, I'm going to build one from scratch by clicking new. So I'm going to say snow salt truck 20-ton. And I'm going to bid this in hours. And if I think my salt trucks run around 600 hours per year, I'm going to put that in, and they run about 12-hour shifts. And the truck was $130,000 with the salter at a 3% market finance. I'm going to say that the lifespan of the vehicle for us is going to be 8 years, and I think it'll be worth $25,000. It should be worth a little more than that, but I tend to look at those on the low end. Put some maintenance and insurance and licensing in. And again, these all vary area by area, so I'm just using some generic numbers here. On a typical shift, I'm going to say that we're going to burn 60 gallons of fuel. So at the end of the day, I've got an hourly cost on the machine of $60.75, or a daily cost of $729. So I'm going to save that to my catalog and to my template, and then it's going to be sitting in both anytime I want to use them in the future. But it's going to allow me to finish up this template with this 20-ton salt truck to kind of add to my template library for the future. So again, as you buy new equipment, you might want to just add it into the library, or you may want to update and add a few templates like this. So onto the estimate, let's do a sample estimate together. So I'm just going to go to my service estimates. Oops, did I not change that? I'm going to go to my service estimates now. And here I'm going to start a new estimate, and I'm going to search up a property. So I've got a chiropractic college here. I'll select this one. And if I've got a different contact, I could go ahead and add one. But if I'm using the same contact that I've made before, I'd just leave that. Now I'm going to update the salesperson to myself, and I'm going to estimate it myself as well. So I'm going to update those two things quickly. And the division here is going to be snow. So I'm going to update that. And once I get into my estimate, the first thing I'm going to do is measure the site. Now, I could map the site to see how far it is from my home home base location or another location that I might be using as a satellite location for snow. But I'm going to measure the site as kind of the priority item. So once that site comes up on Google Measure, I'm going to start to measure everything possible. And if you haven't done that before, it's very easy. Make sure that this is set to measure area, which is what it always sort of reverts to on its own. And I'm gonna just start to click the paved areas that I'm gonna be plowing. And this is gonna give me a good accurate measurement for pricing. So pretty simple exercise. Sorry for the pause. Basically, I've got 0.74 acres on this section of the property, and obviously there's more to the property. I'm not going to bore you and measure the entire property. I've already done that before we've started this webinar, so I know that in total the property is 83,555 feet or 1.92 acres, and I've measured the sidewalks as well, and I know that I've got 6,165 square feet in sidewalks. So this is where I think for those of you who are looking to really build super profit in snow, really going and looking at all of the adjacent properties where you already have properties and doing this type of site measure and preparing estimates in the off season to drive that type of route densification is kind of the key, because I could certainly plow this property with a pickup truck and it's going to take most of the night. I could plow it with a skid steer and it would take half or 3/4 of the night, or I could plow it with a loader with a 16-foot snow pusher, and it's going to only take me an hour or two to plow, and I can do 5 more properties just like this in the neighborhood and drive a lot more revenue and certainly a lot more profit off of that one piece of equipment and one sidewalk person with the blower kind of taking care of all the small areas. So it's certainly, I think, a powerful tool, Google Measure. We built it right into the software to make life easy. But I think what we hear a lot from customers is they're just not using it to really focus on measuring other properties in the neighborhood and preparing quotes without being asked. And I think that's there's a lot of value there, and certainly that's where the profit is hiding in the snow business for most contractors. So let's move on here and we'll build a price. So I'm going to say my confidence level on this one is high, based on the early interactions. If this was a complete cold call, I'd put it down to 10%. But if I've gone out and I kind of have a feeling that this one's going to be good based on the conversation and the early discussions, I might raise the confidence level, and that just updates things in the CRM so that we can see what the sales pipeline looks like. So next up, I'm going to just click on services and pricing here, and we're going to bring up the estimate. So first up, I'm going to look at adding the snow management component. So I'm going to look at this job as though I'm going to sell it based on a monthly fee to plow the snow and manage the snow. And then I'm going to price the salting on a per visit basis. And that's, a pretty common technique to provide a low base monthly cost that's attractive. And then I'm going to try to increase the profitability on the salting component. So I've got my per season price here. I'm going to say in this market, we'd plow kind of 16 times on average if I were to look at a 10-year curve. Every market's different. This being a Toronto sample and me being a Toronto contractor, we get about 47 inches a year, and we typically plow 10 or 12 times, but with cleanups on ongoing snowfalls, I like to kind of say about 16. But again, every market's different. So I've got my snow management in. I'm going to add a template to price this one because I don't want to go through the library and do it manually. So my template's going to come up, and I'm going to decide which template to use. And again, if I'm trying to work on developing the most profitable snow company possible, I want to get 6 or 8 buildings in this neighborhood and use a loader because I know that that's a lot more efficient. So I think I can, for each plow, I think I can easily do this property in 2 hours. So I'm going to say I've got 2 hours with my operator. And my snow walk labor is going to be about the same amount of time. So I'll update that. And now when I come back into my estimate here, I can see that I've got sort of a per visit price of $527 at this sort of standard 9.8% profit. Now, if I want to kind of customize the price per visit, I can do that here. If I think I can charge more or customize the seasonal price, I can do that here. So kind of override it, if you will. That's certainly a possibility. Or if I just wanted to kind of go in and add profit to each line item within here, I could do that as well. So let's just say I want to price this at 15% profit. I could quickly, override each line item here to get that. Or the other way that I can do it later, if I just want to put a blanket 15% on the full estimate, I could just click this set profit button up above and override the whole estimate. You wouldn't want to use that if you want to have a different profit margin on your base contract and maybe a higher profit margin on salting. Sometimes people like doing that to keep their base monthly cost a little bit lower. There's a few ways to sort of win work, and everybody's got their technique, and I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but here I can say that if I put this contract in front of this customer in my market at just under $9,000, and I say it's a 5-month payment program, this is where I update my payments, at $1,790 per month, this isn't a bad price to have snow plowing at this type of a property where it's really high priority. So I think I'd have a good chance at winning the work. Now, the next part to the estimate is going to be ice management. And I'm going to price this per visit. And so when I create the price here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add templates to kind of save some time again. I've built these in the past. So I've got my template. And this one, I think, my 5-ton salt truck is in the neighborhood. We've already got 4 or 5 other buildings. I think I can service all 5 of those lots with a 5-ton. Or maybe it's, a little bigger route, and I think the 14-ton is in that neighborhood, whichever it happens to be. I'll just use the 14-ton and say my salt truck is going to be tied up on that property for an hour and a half. And I think I'm going to use 1.5 tons of salt each time based on the application rate that I'm comfortable with. And again, we said it's 2 acres, and I think 750 pounds per acre is really high, but also very common for a property like this when you need it black asphalt very quick. And with this being a college, it's high traffic early in the morning, so I'm gonna kind of think that through that way. And again, I could use a calculator and have that calculated automatically, but I'm kind of doing that manually for this exercise. And then again, the truck will be there for an hour and a half as well. So I'll save that one. And now my cost is $289 per visit. My price to the customer is $443 per visit for that salting at a 9.8% profit. So again, if I want to go in now and update the profitability, and let's say I wanted to make a little heavier profit on the salting component, I might want to put this section to 30%. So I've got my price now, it's $571 per visit on the salting. And now if I want to just kind of analyze the quote, I can click analysis. And keep in mind, this is based on one salting application, not the full year, and the full year of plowing. I've got my profit summary, which is 47% gross profit, 15.9% profit. The estimate per hour revenue is $145 per hour. So really healthy hourly revenue. And again, this is primarily just for the plowing since it's only one salting at this point. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to want to put a proposal out to the customer. So I'm going to go into my reports here, and I'm going to use a proposal with mixed billing because we're asking for a base monthly contract with additional, and you can sort of name your proposals whatever you'd like. We could call this a winter management proposal. There we go. So I've got my service proposal up, and I've got my per season snow management price, and then I've got my extra services listed, or per visit services listed. And of course, you can import your terms and conditions in here or your contract so that all of your contract document is presented with the proposal. That's how I tend to like to do it. So if you've got a 3 or 4 page snow contract or greater, that's all going to roll out with the service proposal so that all the terms and whatnot are included. And if there's any special notes, maybe requests that the customer had along the way, you may want to update those just quickly within the pricing section, but then obviously document them in the snow contract so that you're protected from a loss prevention perspective. But here, what I've got noted is, clear all parking areas, roadways, sidewalks of snow as required. Begin clearing at 2 inches. Provide continuous service during ongoing snowfalls, and that may be something kind of quickly discussed during the meeting, so that they know that you were listening quickly when they look at the price before they have to dive into a 4 to 10 page contract to check for exclusions and details. But the big thing here is to expedite your pricing. I can't say enough about just simply creating some templates for the different types of equipment and services that you offer for snow, so that you can kind of quickly update, and wherever possible, add production rates to kind of even automate that estimating process a little bit further. And the production rates really do need to be set in accordance with your equipment and your experience. So if you're plowing with a pickup truck, you're only going to clear so many square feet per hour versus a loader, and your equipment is always going to be very specific. So we always suggest that you kind of check those production rates for yourself before setting them up in the system. And there are, some great production rate sort of standards that are out there. But in my experience with looking at those and then using them and comparing them to actuals, sometimes they're off by quite a bit. I think it's important to kind of set up your own production rates based on your own crew, your own equipment, your own experience. So again, up top here, I know that I've got 66 man hours set for this project for the plowing for the winter. And if I wanted to price salt all in, I could do that very easily. If I wanted to, say, change the profit margin across the board for the whole year, I could do that just by overriding here as well. That's something that sometimes people like to do and say, well, I want to make 50% profit on snow, otherwise I'm not going to be in the business. And if that's the case, I can just quickly override for the whole year and change my price very quickly there as well. So that's kind of what I was hoping to cover on the pricing section. Couple other important things that often people overlook who are using the system. We do have the forms library for anybody who's trying to build some systems in their company. There's lots of forms and documents related to all aspects of the business, from accounting to admin, material management, waste elimination, lots of operational systems and safety documents, but lots of great tools and features in here that you can use for your snow and ice division without a doubt. And I always think that there's a lot of value in taking a look in here for contractors. They can always adjust, modify, recreate these systems to kind of suit their own, but there's a good sort of healthy base here, and they're Word and Excel documents, very easy to update, add your logos, and kind of make them your own. If you're not using the customer portal yet, the snow division of your business is definitely going to be supercharged with the customer portal. So the customer portal was designed to allow your customers at your discretion to see all the details and services that were provided as you sort of service the properties. So if you're using before and after photos, they're going to automatically get uploaded into the customer portal. All of the services and notes that your crew has completed and provided into the system, the automatic weather updates are all going to be populated in there as well. And it's going to form your billing hub for your snow customers as well. So any base monthlies plus all of the additional services are going to turn up in here. They can log in, see what happened on their properties, and make payments as well. So kind of provides that level of service that I think the modern customers is looking for. Marketplace, if you haven't started to hassle your vendors yet, please do so. The marketplace is an opportunity for all of the local landscape suppliers to upload their pricing into LMN, so that when you're estimating, you can see all of the options in your area and all of their pricing and SKU numbers to make life easier for pricing and order management when supplying your job site. So obviously in the snow business, we've got our main materials are de-icing products and equipment. We have both in the system, and we're always looking for more vendor relationships. Please kind of pass that word on to your vendors so that we can get them included and make your life a little bit easier as you're estimating. We've got some workshops coming up. If you want to check out this link, golmn.com/snow. We've got all the workshops this year are going to be virtual because of COVID-19, and we are excited about what we have to offer in those workshops. They're going to be sort of a 4-hour format. We're going to focus on building a snow-specific budget. We're going to kind of show you how to do that, dive a little deeper into estimating than I did today, a little bit deeper into sales, operations, and we're going to talk a lot about how to sort of drive efficiency and profitability in your snow business. So that's all for today. I'll take some questions here for the next few minutes. It came up a little bit faster than I thought here, actually, but so why don't we open up to questions now?
Thanks, Mark. Actually, a couple of people are wondering, what is the cost of the customer portal?
The portal is completely included in your subscription, so no cost. You just need to get it all set up, and it's a pretty simple process. If you need some help, we can always help you out with it. But yeah, many customers signed up for that as it first came out because we had sort of it was by far the most requested item on our development schedule at LMN for about 2 years, actually. And really what it does is it manages all of the customer service components in the business, and it allows you to take payments through the portal, credit cards, and soon it'll also take ACH if you're using that with some of your larger commercial customers. But it's really kind of designed to speed up your accounts receivable and kind of simplify the billing process, as well as just kind of provide that third-party documentation on what services were provided when, since everything's kind of GPS located, time-stamped, and you've got that weather, Google Weather imported into the file as well.
That's great. Mark, when forecasting for snow based on previous seasons, how many years do you go back?
What I've typically done is looked at the local environment statistics, and I like to look at a 10-year curve and kind of look at the average depth of snowfall over 10 years and the average number of events over 10 years to kind of capture an average if I'm bidding on per plow or per application, or sorry, all-in contracts. And even when I'm looking at bidding per plow or per application, I like to know that historical data as well, because I think sometimes, you know, people make the mistake of setting their pricing based on sort of a guess. And, you know, if I set my price based on the historical data, even if it's per plow or per application, I know that over 10 years, I'm going to average out where I expected to be. I may have a year where it's not so great, but over 10 years, I'm going to be pretty accurate. But definitely on all-in contracts, I think it's super important that you're really in touch with the average, and I think you should always bid those jobs on the higher end of the average.
Okay, great. There's another question here. Do you recommend building a ceiling into the contract and then flip to per occurrence rates?
Yeah, I think that works really well. It does provide sort of a fair and competitive price for contractors. I think it's a great way to kind of hedge the risk, and I think it's a good way to you know, explain to the customer that you're giving them a really good price based on averages, but in the you know, unusual scenario where there's an exceptionally heavy winter, you need to be paid a little bit more. And I think, you know, most people are quite open to that idea, and I do think it's a way to kind of maintain your competitiveness without kind of pushing the customer too hard on those long-term fixed price contracts.
Okay, great. Looks like we've got two more in here. Do you recommend quoting salt as a separate line item versus including it with plowing?
It really does depend on the customer. Personally, I like all-in contracts. I've found that can be incredibly lucrative on the years where there's not a lot of snow. So, if in your market, once every 5 or 7 years you get very little snow, that could be a real sort of home run season. And for that reason, I really, really like that model. And what I've tried to do is price either with a ceiling to kind of avoid the heavy risk like we just talked about, or just allowed enough salt applications that even in sort of a somewhat extreme year, we don't ever come up really short. My profitability might be affected a little bit if it's a really heavy year, but I'm never going to lose money if I have to salt a lot. And in the case where it doesn't snow much at all, it could just be, a 70 or 80% net profit, which does happen in the snow business. And I know in the 20 years that I've plowed snow, I had 3 years where I made over 70% net profit. I had 1 year where it was actually 91% net profit, which was phenomenal. It just didn't snow, and our team were continuing to work on projects throughout the year, and everything was just kind of everything. The stars aligned, and I think those opportunities don't come often, but when they do, it makes a huge difference in your business to see that sort of surge of profitability, particularly when if you're pushing your sales in snow in the sort of, over $1 million range, if you make 70% profit, it's kind of a windfall in only 5 months.
Great. And the last question here today, Mark, is do you recommend having separate salt trucks to do commercial properties?
I absolutely do. I think for 2 reasons. Naturally, as landscapers, what we tend to do is we start plowing snow with a pickup truck and plow. That's how I started. We have got a pickup truck. We tend to buy 4x4s because we need heavy trucks, and then we get the entrepreneurial sort of edge comes out, and we decide to plow snow. And I think what we do is we start to think of snow plowing as something we do with pickup trucks. Then we start to think of salting as something we do with pickups, and then maybe we get a little bigger pickup or with a dump box, for example. But we still want to try to use every truck like a Swiss Army knife and plow and salt with the same truck. And I think once your fleet sort of expands, and then obviously depending on the type of properties you're doing, but certainly in commercial, I just think it makes a lot more sense to rent or lease the most efficient plowing technology possible for the type of properties. And that may be a skid steer or it may be a loader. And then I want to salt with the most efficient vehicle possible as well, which is usually at minimum a truck that can carry 5 tons. There are a few exceptions. I used to plow around 300 schools, and what we do there is we did use our pickups for that, and I had a lot of pickups because I had a lot of crews. So we'd use the pickups for that, and each one would go out with a small dump insert electric salter, and they could salt their own schools as they plowed them. We found that to be efficient because they were small inner city properties, and we weren't using a lot of salt. But on your typical commercial application, I just think a bigger truck with bigger capacity allows you to work more efficiently. And then, of course, using the most efficient plow as well.